Howdy, y'all. Happy Thursday. We're going into day 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. 5 series will start tonight. We'll discuss the 3 series that started yesterday and a massacre in Western Pennsylvania to start it off. But I just want to say this, we'll keep the pre-show to a minimum here because there's so much stuff to talk about. But have to say, I loved hockey brawls in my youth. We won't see them anymore, probably, unfortunately, probably. The occasional hockey fight, but baseball brawls, to me, they're sort of much ado about nothing because nobody ever gets punched. And we saw
once in a while they do.
Once in a while we'll see like a pitcher like karate kick somebody or something like that. And we had 2 of them yesterday. Nolan Arenado of the Colorado Rockies. I can't remember the pitcher for San Diego, but the pitcher apparently 3 Padres had been hit in the game, or maybe going back to last season. I don't know, or maybe back to an earlier game in the series. But Arenado got one between the numbers, and he ran out to the mound. And the first thing that the pitcher did was take his glove off his left hand, throw it with his right.
Well, that's what you usually do. Yeah, you throw your glove as the pitcher right into the guy's face.
Right, and I think he got him, but then he sort of trailed off the mound, waited for his catcher to and some teammates to interfere. And I didn't see Arenado contact with him, but I think he made contact with a couple of his teammates. And then I saw Mark McGuire basically playing peacemaker in the middle of this brawl, saying, we got hit 3 times. So that was one. And then last night, in between watching the 3 games, I'm flipping back to the Yankees Red Sox, and this is what I mean, Russ. And I admit I'm biased. I'm a Yankees fan, and I hate the Red Sox. But I saw the slide from Tyler Austin on Brock Holt, and it wasn't like he went 5 miles out of the base path to hit the guy. Sometimes you're going to make contact with the shortstop or the second baseman, and he did make contact. He didn't spike him, but he made contact with his leg, and then basically everybody on the Red Sox went banana hammock, and then Joe Kelly, I think it was, hit Austin, and then it was basically on, and Austin charges the mound, throws the bat down, and if you look at the video, you basically saw 2 walls named Stanton and Judge sort of move the Red Sox toward their own dugout. I mean, it was entertaining, but I don't know if there was anything consequential there.
No, I mean, most of these brawls there aren't. I mean, I do remember a few players getting injured, going on a DL from these brawls in the 70s and 80s. Probably the best brawl on team was the 86 Mets. They did it on the field. They did it off the field in Gillies. They did it everywhere, right? And they would take real shots. Like Ray Knight, obviously, you remember what he would do. He took real punch. He punched for real, too. Yeah. But here's the thing. Ron Darling talked about it on a broadcast the other day. When you're sliding into second, like we all know what the Chase Utley slide was. That was to go out of your way with great intent. But what Darling said is in today's game, there's still nothing wrong with sliding in and touching a guy's foot to make him move so his throw isn't perfect, so he's not comfortable. And I agree with that.
Right. And, and honestly, you can't say the game was out of control. If it was 10-1, you could say, okay, that's uncalled for. I think it was 8-1. And then the Red Sox came back and hit a grand slam, and it was 8-6. And I think the Yankees had added on a couple runs, so it was 10-6. So even if it was 4 runs, that game was not over with because
they just hate each other a lot.
They hate each other. And apparently CC Sabathia tackled Chris Sale in the scrum. Yeah, I mean, and this was a good response for the Yankee fans out there who were concerned that they got 14-1. This was a good response by the team.
Actually, there has been, and then we'll get off this. There has been a tired commentary from Yankee fans. I would say the last 4 or 5 years. We're not tough enough. We don't pitch inside anymore. We don't like. I don't know if you've heard it, but I hear it once in a while, and so maybe that will get those fans to calm down a little bit. The game is different. Not everybody does that. Not everybody pitches that way.
Right. It is. Well, yeah. And I mean, I'm one of those people who, I'm not calling for people to be beamed, but when
they felt like that was Girardi driven, I guess.
Yeah, when your player gets beamed, I think there should be a response.
Oh, sure.
And so and I remember a few years back, Jabba Chamberlain put one right in the back of Kevin Youkilis after one of the Red Sox pitchers had hit Jeter or hit somebody else. I'm like, yeah, tit for tat. That's what happens. Anyway, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, April 12th, 2018.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. As I said, it's day 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and weather permitting, it's also opening day for the Buffalo Bisons of the AAA Buffalo Bisons.
Opening day is a great day.
Yes, but the rain gods, who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, 3 games last night. We'll start with the earliest start. And we won't talk too much about it because there really wasn't. I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins jumped all over the Philadelphia Flyers very early. There was never any question who the better team was. It got to the point of, I don't know, maybe embarrassment, because I saw Claude Giroux's commentary after the game, and he was basically, that's the worst playoff game or the worst game I've ever performed in.
Yeah.
7-0 loss for the Flyers. Penguins take a 1-0 lead in the series, and the question is, can the Flyers come back from this? Which I think they can, but can they?
I mean, can they win a game? Yes, that's it. Are they going to win 2? Maybe, but I doubt it. I mean, here's the thing. We talked about it, and I was on probably 2 or 3 shows, and we did our show, and we talked about it more than once. Brian Elliott's probably not 100%. We know that. And he hasn't had a great playoff record to begin with. So after 3 goals, probably should have been pulled.
Right.
But it does show how the coach does not like Peter Mrazek, to the point where even at 3-0 didn't feel like he should pull him. Yeah. So there's that. So we get past that. We did talk about yesterday the defense that the Penguins forwards play. And I think that gets poo-pooed because everybody's like, oh, well, the Penguins defense stinks. Well, it's not perfect, but we do forget, none of us mentioned Justin Schultz. He's a pretty good defender now. Like Justin Schultz, when he was with Edmonton, had no clue how to play defense. He's pretty good now. So we should give guys like that a little more credit, but also the forwards do play defense. So that's another thing. We talked about Brian Rust. I remember bringing him up. He always scores in the playoffs. He did it again.
As soon as he scored, I texted you, Brian Rust equals playoff performer.
Yeah. He's just one of those guys, right? And whether we mention Gensel or not, he's another one of those guys. Sheary is another one of those guys. They just rise to the occasion. They have a lot of guys that rise to the occasion. They know what it takes to win. Philly, a couple of things. Now, it was interesting. Claude Giroux took a lot of face-offs. So clearly they weren't going to let Nolan Patrick face off against the big guns all the time. So
and we talked about that yesterday.
And we talked about that. Now, Philly dominated in the dot. That was the one thing in that game they dominated. That it was face-offs. But everything else, they just got steamrolled. Scott Lawton on that missed shot. I told people, when the Flyers are good, Scott Lawton is not going to be your 4th-line center. And I get all kinds of bristling. What do you mean? I'm like, listen, he's a fringe NHL player. He is. And that play, unfortunately, shows it. It's just the hard knocks of life. His skating, has gotten a little better. But the Flyers don't have like this great fourth line shutdown line. So that's another thing. Val Filppula, like at this point, it's a weak spot also for them when you're playing someone like the Penguins.
Well, I mean, I thought first Elliott. Okay, we're getting the echo here. Hold 1 second here. See this. Okay. All right. Well, I just have to fight through the echo. Oh, now it's gone. Elliott clearly is, I'd say 65%. He didn't look comfortable. He gave up a bad rebound on that first goal. Yeah. It sort of went all downhill from there. But, I think you're right in the respect that it shows how little Hackstall has any kind of trust in Mrazek, that he waited to 5-0. Right. And then after the game, he comes out and he says, I think he basically said, essentially, I think I'm going to go back with Elliott in game 2.
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy. And if that's the case, then you know what? Then you may as well, you may as well go to Alex Lyon.
Right.
If Elliott's at 60%,
or Dustin Tokarski, I mean,
Dustin Tokarski, or can you emergency recall Carter Hart from the WHL? I'm joking, but I'm just saying, it's like, I mean, that's pretty sad that you have to go with a goaltender who's clearly not up to snuff. I also think that, I'm a big fan of the Philadelphia defense as a whole, Provorov and Gostisbehere, but I think they showed their age or lack of experience in that game last night because, Malkin basically went to the net almost unopposed on his goal. It was
a fantastic play, but it's true. He did.
Yes.
I mean, I will say this, at least Gostisbehere pushed him to the backhand and Malkin still scored on the backhand.
Still rifled it like it was a slap shot inside the pole. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then, to talk about unbelievable. I mean, the Pirates should sign Sidney Crosby the way he's been hitting.
Probably should. The Pirates are not very good.
Oh my God! I mean, what is the deal with the in the air goals? I mean, it's incredible. This is 3.
Something that he's worked on.
Yeah.
Because he's scoring more of them with a lot more frequency now. And again, here's the funny thing. When there was a narrative for this series, the narrative was, well, it's hard to win 3 in a row, and the Penguins' defense isn't that good. So let's see if the young upstart Flyers can beat the Penguins. But I think the Penguins, and I do believe this. Like I said, if the Flyers could have won yesterday's game, they might have put a little bit of doubt in the Penguins' mind, like, okay, this is a series, we got to fight for our lives. The Penguins, no matter what, play like they're going to fight for their lives anyhow. But now I think they know that they could have their way with them, and they're going to start taking chances like crazy.
Yeah, they're going to be infused with confidence now, and they're going to jump into the attack, and they're not going to have any fear. And, lost in this, Matt Murray made a couple saves early in the game, and it looked like the Matt Murray of the last couple years in the playoffs.
To his credit, and we did say it was overblown how people were worried about Matt Murray going into the playoffs. Like, he's been nothing but a great playoff performer.
Right. Well, I'm not worried about him as a performer. I'm worried about him in terms of his health. I mean, that's the only thing I think that can derail this team is if he gets hurt again. If he gets hurt again, then I think they're human right now with him playing the way he can play, and with Crosby and Malkin and Kessel and everybody else they have in Brassard. They're superhuman. So it's
the only thing Philly can do now is take the slow lumbering guys out of the lineup, get rid of Laterra, put Jordan Wheel in. You're going to have to speed this team up, and you're going to have to try and figure out how to keep the puck away from the Penguins. That's what you're going to have to do. They're going to have to do that.
And what I think they're going to have to do, and I don't know if they have the will to do it, is I think they're going to have to go, and I'm not saying run, but I'm saying they're going to have to make it tough on Crosby and tough on Malkin. They're going to have to hit him. They're going to have to hit him a lot. They're going to have to slow him down. If they can do that, they might have a chance of winning a game or two.
The problem is they don't have a lot of guys that can do it other than Provorov. Even Gudis doesn't have the speed to get near a Crosby half the time.
Right. Game 2 last night was Winnipeg and Minnesota, and very good game. It was slow starting 0-0 after 1. Then late in the second, early in the third really got great. I mean, for those who thought that Minnesota was going to be a pushover, they weren't. That they aren't going to be. It's going to be a tougher maybe than expected series.
That's why I do think it's going to go 7. I really feel like it can. Look, I get that Minnesota's missing a lot. They are, but their defense still played pretty well, and Dubnyk stood on his head for most of that game.
Dubnyk was really good. They played Matt Dumba a lot, and I'm surprised they didn't play Brodin as much as they because I know that he's not exactly a great offensive defenseman. And Spurgeon played. We were talking about Spurgeon not being in the lineup. But Scheifele with a nice power play goal late in the second. And then, Minnesota comes out with 2 goals in the first 4 minutes of the third, and really put people at the MTS Center on their hands, because that was sort of surprising. The Parise goal especially. You said it. Parise has been playing great. I think he's been playing great the last 5 weeks of the season. I think he had in double figures in goals, and that was a great goal to put them in the lead.
Yeah, I mean, and again, for that nonsensical talk about, well, if Hellebuck falters, well, why is anybody expecting Hellebuck to get pulled at all? He's had a fantastic year. He was great 2 years ago. Last year was a little off, but so was the team. Like, I didn't understand the narrative, but I'm not ready to hand the Stanley Cup yet to Winnipeg. I think Minnesota's going to give them a hard time. Like I said, I could see Minnesota losing the series, but guys like Eric Stahl, these guys are they're pretty wily, and they do have a good ability to come back. I think they're going to win at least one or two in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to make this series. I think this series is probably going to be that we're going to win at home, you're going to win at home, and then Game 7, Winnipeg to win in their building. I really think it's going to go to that.
It could. I mean, I have the Jets in 5, but it could go 6, it could go 7. You never know. I think the Jets are going to win the series. And one thing you saw yesterday, and I retweeted it when I saw the video of it, was Byfuglien freight training Joel Eriksson Ek. I mean, if Byfuglien's going to play like that, if he's going to be throwing his
will help a lot.
Yeah, that will help them a lot, even though their defense, like Peter said yesterday, is a little shorthanded right now. Good news for Winnipeg, Patrick Laine gets off the schneid. He had trouble scoring late in the season. He gets a nice goal to tie the game in the third period, a nice wrister that top corner past Dubnyk. And as you said, Joe Morrow with the winning goal, which is a little.
Joe Morrow was the first-round pick, and he was expected to be a pretty good offensive defenseman, but then took on pretty early on a defensive defenseman role because the offense wasn't there. And, he's had a journey, man, but man, he scored a massive goal for them. And hey, that's one of those that you shoot on net, anything can happen.
Yeah. And the bad news for Winnipeg is that Matthew Perreault left the game and there was no update after the game. But Peter tweeted something, I think this morning, that said, Perreault's out. Okay, step in Jack Roslovic.
Right, I was gonna say, yeah.
And I'm like, there you go. I mean, that team has a lot of depth, and Perreault is
they have a lot of depth. They don't have a lot of playoff experience, and I still think that's where Minnesota can draw on some of that and fight back in this series, get the lineup right. Boudreau really coached a good game. I mean, that was for all the grief he takes, it wasn't his fault. It really wasn't anybody's fault. It was a power play goal like that. That's what happened.
Russ, I sometimes think that he takes a lot of grief for, like, last night after the goal that tied it with Laine, the cameras zoom in on him and he's got this sort of befuddled look on his face.
Yeah.
I think he takes heat for that because he looks, he's not like angry. He's not like, he's just sort of like befuddled and like his face is a little red. And I'm like, but people react differently to different things, and this guy has been behind the bench for a lot of games.
He has. But like I said, very, very entertaining.
Yes. Final game last night of the debut of the Vegas Golden Knights in the postseason. There was a lot of showmanship there. I saw Jeremy Roenick.
Cool. It was a cool look. Yeah. I'm not a huge Middle Ages. I probably have watched, a couple of movies to that degree, but I don't watch Game of Thrones. I'm not that guy, but I get that there's a lot of people that like it. And it was very theatrical and very Vegas-y, and that's fine. It was cool. Roenick looked like he was going to have a heart attack, rolling the horn, whatever that thing is,
Yeah, it was some of it was lost on me. But
no, it was good. It was good theatrics.
Now, the game itself, and I drifted off in the second period and woke up later in the game because it was a long day for me. But I caught the goal, the deflection, and I believe it went to Belmar because it looked like he deflected.
Go to Pierre-Edouard Belmar, which I'm sure Flyers fans weren't happy about.
Yes. But what struck me while I was awake was the Kings really, I didn't see a ton of offensive opportunities. The speed advantage for Vegas was able to, at times, neutralize LA's offensive attack. And there is going to be that battle there between the speed of Vegas and the sort of heavy team that the Kings are. I think eventually the Kings will win out in that, but maybe not. I mean, I know that some people pick Vegas.
There were some things. All right, so look, Marc-Andre Fleury is always capable of getting a shutout. That's no shock. But I think the the Knights spent a great amount of time after their flurry in the first period. They had a lot of scoring chances then on just trying to keep the Kings off the board. And that's going to be hard to keep up for an entire series. And I think that's something. Now, they did also take I forget who it was, took a real good cheap shot on Doughty.
I think it was Halla. I think it was. Yeah. Oh no, Marchessault with
Marchessault and like
on the back of his foot.
On the back of his foot, and that bothered him for a fair amount of that game. So that's something where, you know, for everybody who's like all like, hey, look at the Knights, this great young team, that was a dirty play, man.
Yeah, it was a dirty play. And if you looked, I mean, I know that Brown left the game after blocking a shot. Kopitar went to the bench after blocking a shot. It wasn't just that little cheap shot. They were zeroing in on Doughty because I think they realized, they look at the Kings without Muzzin in the lineup, that Doughty's going to play 30+ minutes, and they have to punish the guy because he can win the series, be a definite plus in terms of being out there for so much and helping the Kings win that series. So I mean, it's good tactics to target Doughty and to run him.
Not with cheap shots. That's what I don't.
But definitely the Marchessault slash or whatever.
Probably going to get something for that this series. I saw Clifford was on him a little yesterday, and it's going to come back to him. But at the end of the day, they played a good game. A couple things, if you remember. Now this is where the Sabres look. They could use all the offense they can get, and if you remember, I said. If I were the Knights, I would take William Carrier off their board there if they're going to put him out there. And that was a mistake by the Sabres. I really do think that they didn't realize what they had in that guy. He can play, and he helped set up that goal. He made a really good play to help all of that happen. And I think William Carrier, that's somebody that Buffalo could use right now. Carlson played a really good game. Again, I wanted to see how he performed in the playoffs. He looked great. So William Karlsson's for real. I never thought he wasn't, to be honest. I told you, everybody says, well, you didn't know he'd score this many goals. Nobody did, but everybody knew he had a lot of talent. Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, Quick was great, and he kept them off the board. And all the Kings have to do is be a little more physical and get a couple of breaks, and this series could turn that quickly too.
Yeah, I mean, if Fleury is shutting teams out 1-0. Yeah, nobody can win, but I think the Kings have a good enough offense to break through, and then it's basically up to Vegas to see if they can produce more than one goal. So, and I grant you with Karlsson, I was impressed with him on one of the power plays early in the game where he was just one-timing like crazy, and he's
the thing that's very obvious though that they don't have, and maybe this will change next year, is they don't have a defenseman to run the power play. They were having Karlsson play the point there.
Yeah, they were. Theodore was pretty much
Theodore was doing it once in a while, and he had a good shot on that play too. But they don't have full confidence yet in him doing that. Did you notice that?
Yeah, and maybe that's a role that a year or two down the road it's going to be Eric Brandstrom.
That's why I think Brandstrom's going to be that guy. Yeah.
Or if they make the trade that they tried to make at the deadline, that might be Erik Karlsson. You never know.
Right.
Okay. The 5 games that are starting tonight. We'll start with the Devils and the Lightning. I think the Devils, in spite of a Cinderella season, in spite of Taylor Hall probably being 1-2 in the MVP voting, in spite of the great story of the Emoji King, Keith Kincaid. I think that the Devils can give Tampa a scare, but I don't see any scenario, barring like massive injury on the part of Tampa Bay, that the Lightning don't win this series. What do you think, Russ?
I think Tampa wins in 7. I think the interesting thing about this series will be Tampa doesn't look great right now. It might take a few games for Stamkos to get back to speed. Their defense is a little askew, and I think while all this is going on, with the system that the Devils play and with Taylor Hall being as good as he is right now, there could be, some games that the Devils win here. Will they all be behind Kincaid? I don't know, but I think Kincaid has a really good chance of pulling something off here. And we always look for that hot playoff goalie, and nobody has mentioned his name, and maybe he's the guy. I mean, you never know. Andrew Hammond did get shelled that first game. They took him out. I think Kincaid will do better than that, and I expect him to live out the game. I do.
Well, okay. The first thing is Stamkos with Tampa playing consequential games, the last 3 games, he doesn't play. That tells me obviously he's injured, but a question what percentage of Stamkos you're getting?
Because we know he plays regardless.
Right. So he's going to play, but is it 60% Stamkos or 80% Stamkos? I mean, it's still going to be a great player, but you know, it could limit his success rate there. I think the Vasilevsky is a concern. I especially watching him in that late season game against Buffalo when they're trying to win first in the Atlantic and home ice advantage through the Eastern Conference, and Vasilevsky is unable to stop a beach ball, let alone a puck. And then the contrast of him from earlier in the year to later in the year. I mean, we know that he made comments about him being tired. And the problem is they had Louis Domingue as the backup, and they really couldn't rest him down the stretch as much as maybe they would like to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm concerned about Vasilevsky going into this series, but everything else, I mean, I know that New Jersey is really fast, and so is Tampa.
Yeah, Miles Wood will skate circles around some of those guys. He will.
Yeah, and he's a feisty guy, and but matching up like Travis Zajac against some of the centers on the.
You know what the funny thing is, though, and here's the thing, and I mentioned it a little bit on Sirius yesterday on Coolius' show. Like, Blake Coleman has been great.
Yes, pickle juice, and
he doesn't get enough credit. Like, he's a guy that could hurt you, and you're not expecting him to hurt you. On the power play, you put the Devils on the power play. Kyle Palmieri's got a great shot on the power play.
Yep,
he will score on anybody on the power play, and so they do have some weapons. Watch this series. I don't think it's going to be an easy one. It's not going to be like what Pittsburgh did to Philly yesterday.
Well, I have Lightning in 6, and I think that the additions of Grabner and the addition of Maroon.
Yeah, we got to see Grabner step up here. We do.
Yeah, they helped out. But I'll tell you, the 2 guys. I mean, Braden Point, is, I don't know if he's a star, but on that team, he could make Tyler Johnson expendable in the next year or so. But Anthony Cirelli, in not a lot of games, has made a difference for, and very quick, young kid, but a lot of talent, works like crazy. I mean, Yanni Gord. I mean, all these guys, Corey Conacher, all these guys are
Corey Conacher going to still be in the series by the end of it. I don't know.
It's Cooper. Of course he's going to be. That's his guy. He loves that. He loves him. He's going to be on the 4th line. He's going to be Russ, he's the perfect 4th liner in the playoffs because he's a pain in the ass and he'll get underneath the skin of people.
Yeah, but if Adam Ernie's healthy, I think I want him in there.
I agree, but I've never been a big fan of Corey Conacher's game. But anyway, second game of the night is the game that I'll be concentrating on, which is the Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins. I think if you look at the matchups in the playoffs here, this is the one where the cumulative points of both teams is the highest. So it's arguably the most even series of any of the 8 series in the first round. I think it's going to go 7. Get your opinion here on this one first, Russ.
Yeah, I've got Boston in 7. There's a few things I don't like. They're not playing Ryan Donato, and Ty Anderson wrote about that, and he's right. The reason you have Ryan Donato there is for the youthful legs and that shot. Mm-hmm. And if you get him that shot in open space, that could be 4, 5, 6 goals throughout these playoffs that they're not going to get if they put him on the bench and just in lieu of better defense. So I think that's a mistake for Boston, and that's something I didn't want to see. Look, Boston, they still have guys like Bergeron. They still have Chara. They have guys that from, Rask has had a great year. They have guys from the last regime that still know how to win. They've infused some youth. McAvoy's healthy. Yeah. All those things look good. Losing Carlo hurts them, and that's another reason why I think it goes to 7. But if I flip to the Leaf side, when I was filling out my hockey writers ballot, we have to do an all-star team, and Freddie Anderson almost made it as a goalie. I want to say he might have been the 4th best goalie in the NHL this year. He's really been that good, and I don't think he gets enough credit because of, I guess Babcock just takes a lot of the shine away from a lot of the players. But he's really been that good, and I think he will be a reason the series goes 7-2. Matthews is Matthews. He's going to be great. I still worry about we always harp on the Leafs defense, and it's definitely a harpable point.
Yeah, I mean, I did a side-by-side breakdown of the series, and I give a slight advantage to Anderson in goal, although the one concern I had was his goals against in March and April down the stretch, playing, every game, not back to back. In the last 5 weeks, his goals against was 3.5 and his save percentage was under 900. So
I think it's a little wear and tear, but he's had some days off here.
But he's had some days off, and that should hopefully for the Leafs, help them, because they need him to be at the top level. Tuukka Rask has played the least amount of games that he has played in 4 seasons, and that was because
perfect. That's what we've been saying that needs to happen.
Right. They played Khudobin 31 games. So Rask is in the 50s, so he should be fresh for the playoffs, and he's played pretty well. Basically the same stats he's had the last 4 seasons, around a 915 save percentage. He's a good, solid goaltender with a lot of experience. I think the Bruins' advantage is immense on the blue line. I can't get by. Like Chara, McAvoy, and Krug is the top 3 as compared to Gardner, Riley, and Hainsey.
Yeah, I mean, don't sleep on Grzelcyk. Grzelcyk can play, man.
Well, Grzelcyk's on the bottom pairing, and it's interesting that both teams are doing a similar thing. Grzelcyk is a sort of diminutive rookie with a lot of speed. Travis Dermott is not diminutive, but he's a speedy guy, and they're pairing them with the grizzled veteran defensive defenseman and Adam McQuaid and Roman Polak. So you got that. I just think that Hainsey's play dropped off a lot during the season,
but I think that may have been fatigue also. And
again, do we know that 5 or 6 days from the end of the season to the beginning of the playoffs, and in between, does that refresh these players? We don't know. All I know is I think Boston had an advantage with Chara and McAvoy as the top pairing, and forward wise, I think it's even. But the big matchup, and this will be the chess game going on throughout the entire series, is what is Babcock going to do matching up against Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak? There's been indications that he's content with going head to head with Matthews.
He should not do that at home. He should get Austin Matthews away from Bergeron. That's what he should.
In Boston, he may not be able to, but what he's going to try to do is he's trying to get Kadri and Marleau, and Marner's been on that line. And that's the thing. When they played in the regular season, they moved Komarov up to that line, but that would juggle the all 4 lines, and
it's too much juggling.
It's too much juggling early on. I think they'll see where things are.
Yeah,
and go from there. Power play shorthanded. They're basically even. These are 2 good teams. I think it's going to go with 7 games, and right now I give it.
It'll be one of the best series. It will.
Yeah, I go with Boston in 7, but I think Toronto can win it.
Oh, they can win it. There's no question.
Yep. Next game on the books is the Blue Jackets and the Capitals. We mentioned yesterday that Philip Grubauer will be starting the game for Washington. Columbus. Played very well down the stretch. Artemi Panarin finished the year with 82 points. I don't know what did Anton Forsberg do.
Remember?
Yeah,
I think Brandon Saad had at least 40 points though, didn't he?
Yes. What are your thoughts?
I got to look it up.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me look it up.
Okay. I'll give my thoughts in the series. I'm picking the Blue Jackets in 7. I think that Bobrovsky will finally step up in the playoffs. He's had some difficulties in the postseason. I think it's mostly been he's played Pittsburgh, and that's the reason why. You've got Seth Jones and Werenski on the blue line. Pierre-Luc Dubois has made amazing strides in his rookie year, and he might be a guy who's got the size and speed to match up against Backstrom. Now, the question is whether, if they match up Wenberg with Kuznetsov, whether that's that can be an even break.
It depends on Kuznetsov. I said that yesterday. Which one's going to show up?
Yeah, and there have been critics.
Stott had 35 points. I just want to point that out. Okay.
And there have been critics, and obviously, Ovechkin has not come up big at times in the postseason, and this is
but it's not all on him. We can't put it all on him.
It's funny though. The additions at the deadline, I think more than any team, the additions at the deadline really helped Columbus. Letestu, Cole, and Vanek. And Vanek, I don't know if they're using him on the power play, but they should be if they're not. But
I think they are.
Yeah, but they're a much deeper team, Columbus, than than they were at before the deadline. And
yes,
guys like Boone Jenner and Atkinson came alive late in the season. So I think that they're on. I think they're right at the right place going into the playoffs, and that's why I picked the Blue Jackets in 7.
Yeah, I like the Jackets in 7 as well. I've been going back and forth between 6 and 7. I do think they're going to win. But I like him in 7. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to be a key guy in this series. And look, he had 20 goals. And if you've seen him, he is so physically strong right now. And he does play great defense. All those haters from a couple of years ago, oh, look, he's not producing. Yeah, whatever. He's producing. And Jarmo Kekalainen proved them wrong. He made him a center, and he's a good center.
Mm-hmm.
So we had that, right? Bobrovsky, I'm not worried about. Zach Werenski's a weapon. We know that. I still think they're making a mistake keeping Milano on the bench, and I will contend to say that because when they're dying for secondary scoring, he is that guy, and he'll get in the series. He will, because if there's going to be a point where they're going to need more goals, and he's going to do it. But at the end of the day, Panarin is the best guy on both teams until Ovechkin says otherwise. If Ovechkin were to get a hat trick like Crosby did yesterday, everybody would shut up. But until then, I think Panarin's the best player on both teams. And I think right now, and I'm not saying that because of the trade. I'm really just saying that because he has been quietly that good and really a difference maker for this team. Columbus has good defense too. Murray, Jack Johnson, all those guys, Werenski, Savard, they're a really good core. Like this is, John Tortorella's got a really good defensive core to work with. And when he does, he generally has a good series. So I like the Jackets here.
Yeah. And go back for a second here. Hold on. Let me just do what I did the last time. Okay. Damn it. There it goes. And as somebody joked, I think it was Anthony, I don't know, it was so I saw somebody said that the Russian, there'll be like 2 or 3 Russian media people from Pravda or wherever following this series because Ovechkin, Kuznetsov.
Oh no, it was me. I said all of Russia would be following.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's true. Yeah, definitely. Okay, next game is the Colorado Avalanche and the Nashville Predators. A lot of people are picking Nashville to go to the Stanley Cup final and potentially win it. Unlike last year, they're not coming in limping with injuries, but that didn't seem to hurt them early on because they swept Chicago in the first round. This was the only sweep that I predicted, Russ. I had Predators in 4. And it's not anything against the Avalanche. I mean, I
just think, look, if they had Varlamov, it wouldn't be a sweep. But
right.
I think Bernier is just going to get steamrolled here.
Right, and I don't know if it may be a case that Andrew Hammond gets in this series based on how Bernier can at times stand on his head.
Sure,
but
Nashville's just too big. That's the problem.
They're too big. They're too deep up the middle. I mean, we're talking about a team, and we said this before. Colton Sissons was their number 1 center in the playoffs last year and in the final. And this year, your centers are Johansson, Turris, Bonino, and I think they're using Fisher on the 4th line at center, but if they may be using him on the wing, but if not, it's Sissons.
Yeah.
But that's
the addition of Bonino is huge.
Yeah, and the addition of Ryan Hartman at the deadline from Chicago. Craig Smith had a good year.
There's not much to debate on this series.
Right. And they arguably have the deepest defense in the league in the playoffs. And Eric Johnson is out, so I have Predators.
McKinnon and Rantanen need to be Gretzky and Messier, or there's no chance.
Right. Yeah, and there's a chance for an upset for one game. Sometimes that can happen, but yeah, I just think I don't think I've seen anybody pick the Avalanche in a prediction. And the final game is the Battle of California, the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks. You go first on this one, Russ.
Well, it's an interesting one because preseason I picked, the Penguins and the Ducks, and I'm sticking with the Ducks. I think they have the best tandem in the playoffs. I don't think there's any question about that. Gibson's back, but in case, he does get another concussion or something happens, you got Ryan Miller, who now with a great defense in front of him, a big defense, he doesn't get steamrolled like he used to. And that's something where that's added some extra life to him. Ricard Raquel is one of the best guys in these playoffs. I mean, there's no question about that. even with Fowler out, I think they could still beat the Sharks. Martin Jones is vastly underrated. Even though he got shelled that last game of the year, I think that was just out of fatigue. I don't expect to see Aaron Dell, although Eck probably would say he would. The end of the day, I think the core with Perry and Getzlaf, and then you've got Raquel, and Silverberg's always good in the playoffs. And I think the Ducks have enough. I'm not discounting the Sharks. Actually, when I was asked about a dark horse in the Stanley Cup race, I feel like whoever comes out of this series could possibly come out of the West. I know everybody's picking Nashville, but it wouldn't shock me if either one of these teams came out of the West. And same with the Sharks, if they win this series. This is going to be one of the best series that we see. It will be physical, but at the end, I do pick the Ducks in 7.
I picked the Ducks in 6, and I think that I
did too. On other shows, I did. I'm going to go 7 for this one because I've been thinking about it because of the injuries. But I went Anaheim in 6 too. Like 6 or 7 is the way to go. Yeah,
and I the injury to Fowler, and to me it sounds like he's not going to be there for the first round. Luckily they're very deep on defense, so that means a heavier workload for Lindholm and Montour. Obviously they're going to Miller is a battle-tested veteran. We don't know how long, Gibson's going to be out. You never know. I thought Jared Spurgeon was going to be out for the first round. He played in the first game.
Gibson, I think, is practicing, right?
Yeah. So,
you never know.
Yeah, it could be Miller to start the series and Gibson to play soon after.
It's a good problem to have, though.
It's a nice problem to have after last year having to go to Bernier and him, I think, costing them a chance at the Cup final.
Yeah.
I think the big absence is Thornton, and we don't know about Thornton, but if he's in the lineup, if he all of a sudden pops in and does like what's that?
Willis Reed. We always use
right, exactly. If he does a Willis Reed, then
but I think that's going to come in the second round if they make it. I don't think he can make it back to the first round. I don't.
Yeah, and if he does, he probably won't be anywhere close to 100% effectiveness. So yeah, the 1-2 up the middle of Getzlaf and Kessler is still tough. They have speed and skill on the wings and Raquel is a very good player, their leading scorer. So I just think
Hurdle's going to hurt you. He's always going to score points.
Yeah.
I do worry about the loss of Marleau, and so now it's essentially Marleau and Thornton both out of there in the playoffs.
Right.
That's something we've never seen before.
Yeah. So Ducks in 6. A couple things here, or actually one thing. A note from the Department of Player Safety: Drew Doughty will have a hearing today for an illegal check on the head of William Carrier. I didn't see this.
I didn't see that, but I guess that was his way of getting back.
Well, he didn't get back on the guy who actually slashed him, but he got back on the guy who apparently was, one of the more dominant players for Vegas yesterday. But Russ, this is big. If they're having a hearing, if he gets suspended,
if you lose him for a game, they're going to lose that game.
Yes, this is big. And we know
that hit too. I don't know.
It's on Twitter. If you check out the Twitter feed of David Nestico, NESTICO 200, he has the video, and it's it doesn't look it's not. It's sort of like the Bufflin hit on Eriksson Ek, but Bufflin made contact with the shoulder of Eriksson Ek, whereas Doughty went up high, and I'm looking at it, and he hit him on the jaw with the right shoulder. So,
oh yeah, he sure did.
Yeah. So that's rule 48 right there, isn't it? Isn't that the rule?
He's gonna get a game.
You think so?
If they get a hearing, why have a hearing if you're not going to get a game?
Well, they didn't say an in person. Then it would definitely be.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't say in person, right? I was thinking about that.
Yeah, and we know this, and we know the standard for suspension in the play. Now,
I'll say this: a game is the most he's going to get.
Right. The NHL can go a long way to getting rid of that notion that a suspension in the playoffs is different than a suspension. Remember, Chris Pronger in 2007. In the regular season, what he did would have gotten 10 games. And what did he get? 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he may not get a game. That's true.
Yeah, he could get a $5,000 fine,
Yeah.
and then everybody in Vegas will be going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, true.
So, okay, good show, guys. Good show, Ross. Excuse me. I'm used to saying guys. We will be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what time. It'll depend on the schedule, but we'll review the 5 games that we just talked about. And
we're thinking about everybody in Humboldt. That's why I'm wearing the jersey.
Okay. Good job. And we'll be back tomorrow. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.